What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Burning Down Babylon podcast. The podcast where I speak more on a personal level and tell little stories about my life, not covering the news or current events, but the Burning Down Babylon podcast is more just about me and my life. And with episode 2, I wanted to talk about what made me awake, the waking moment, or the process in which I became awake. And I'm going to be 36 years old this year. I've been what you would call woke since I would say I was a teenager. I was always a bookworm. I love reading books. I have a vast collection of books. The library was one of my favorite places to go in town or when I was in school. So I'm very bookish and I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. With that said, being a book reader, you come across all sorts of information and topics, non-book readers just don't come across in their life. I must say that book readers are more aware and more intelligent than non-book readers. Don't take that personally, but book readers just have a much more vast subject matter, a larger vocabulary, a better understanding of information. You're constantly taking in new information, you're constantly reading new words, looking up new words. Even to this day, I still go to dictionary.com when I don't know or understand a word or how it's being used. But getting back to the subject matter of being woke, I was always big into reading the newspaper. Since, the mid-90s when the internet became available to me, I was always checking out people's, back then it was GeoCities, people's blogs, stuff like that. So, what really made me open my eyes was Hitler and Nazi Germany, because even to this day, so many years later, the Nazis and Hitler is a very taboo subject. And I wanted to know why. You know, if everyone says someone's a bad guy, I look it up and see why. Why is everybody. How could so many people believe the same thing? I mean, you don't hear too many good things about Nazis and Hitler, even though he turned the German economy around from a depression into an economic superpower in 2 or 3 years, where it took America much longer. But that was the real eye-opener for me that really made me say, hey, what's going on? And then you learn the winners of the wars write history. You learn that a certain group of people runs the media, the book publishing houses, you know, the news, Zionist Jews. But the whole Hitler and Nazi Germany thing really woke me up and it made me curious. The one day when I was in high school, I wanted to borrow a book about Hitler. And I noticed that nowhere in the library were there books on Nazis or Hitler. So I asked the librarian, hey, why aren't there any books on Nazi Germany or Hitler? And I lied. I said I had a book report to do. Make it more, reasonable, more believable. So the librarian took me behind the counter. And behind the counter there were 3 doors. One was an office, one was a closet, and there was another door on the side that I never saw open or anyone go in or out. And the librarian brought me into that door and turned on the light, and it was a small little closet but it was filled with books. And I asked her, why are these books hidden away in this closet? And she basically said that these are books that the school district doesn't want, the average student to wonder upon. And it was books about the Nazis, and I really can't, it was so long ago, I can't really remember other than the books about Hitler and the Nazis, because that's why I was in there in the first place. But even then, I could see, you know, knowledge being hidden away and censorship. And it made me wonder, why are these books hidden like this? What's the big deal? Why would they hide books in a closet? And that just really, sparked my curiosity. Around the same time, when I was in middle school, there was the Ruby Ridge event, where I saw a family held up in a log cabin. The man's son was shot by the government, and what really stood out is his wife was holding their newborn baby, standing by the front door, and the door was closed. But the United States government snipers shot the woman in the head through the door. And to me, that was like, wow, like what? These people didn't pose a threat to anyone. They were held up in their cabin. But to shoot the woman while she was holding a baby made me really consider, what's our government about? And if they could do this to some family, and I think that was in Montana, I really don't remember where it went down, but it was out west. But it really made me, think about the government and what 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 could they do to the average person? If they could shoot a woman holding a baby through a door, a cabin door, what could they do to me? And right around the same time, the incident in Waco, Texas happened with David Koresh and the Branch Davidians. And I watched on television on the news a tank drive up to a building, smash down part of the wall, and then I watched fire shoot out of the cannon. And they burned the building down with women, innocent women and children. And as the women and children were running out of the building, the government was shooting them. And that was like, wow, what the fuck is going on here? I mean, this is insane. Also around that time was the first World Trade Center bombing. I mean, these events were just, coming one after another, just like happens today. I mean, this was around 1993, 1994, and after the first World Trade Center bombing, there was the whole anthrax scare. And this anthrax was found out to be, military grade anthrax that could have only been produced in Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is a very, I don't want to use the word secretive, but you need a very high level security pass to get into Fort Detrick, Maryland. There's a chemical warfare lab there. So, I mean, just some, lone wolf terrorists from Libya or Iraq or Iran didn't get a hold of this anthrax. Someone in the United States military industrial complex was involved. And, with the first World Trade Center bombing, I saw the whole agenda of Islamic terrorists. Now, around the same time, there was the Oklahoma City bombing. And that was like the first event that I actually started doing some hardcore research. And through my research, I discovered that a fertilizer bomb parked in a truck could not have done the damage that was done. There was a preschool across the street, a daycare center, I guess you would call it, and children were killed and hurt. They constantly showed the destruction over and over again. And although I wasn't, as fully aware as I am now, these events I'm talking about really stood out in my mind. Then coming up, there was the war in Kosovo, Desert Storm. With Desert Storm, I watched Iraq being blown up live on television. It was televised. You can actually sit and watch the war live around the clock. And it always just made me think, why would they show war live on TV? Because the television is used to program you, whether you want to believe that or not. Television is not, a device that was made for a person's entertainment. It's a propaganda device, just like the radio was, or the telegraph, or even the printing press. So the 90s really shaped my, conspiratorial thinking. And, in the 90s, talking about such events, false flag operations, terrorism, psyops, you were quickly labeled a conspiracy theorist, you're a nut job, you're crazy, why are you wasting your time on such things? But I didn't just, read the newspaper or, look on the internet. And people always say, well, where'd you get that information? The internet? Like the internet is just a monolithic, website where anyone could just, post anything, and once information is gathered from the internet, it's automatically discredited by people because these people don't understand what the internet is. They have their Twitter, they have their Facebook, and to them that's what the internet is because anyone could write anything on social media. They don't understand that there is, medical journals, doctors and scientists have websites where they post information and data, mathematicians, scholars, I mean, the list goes on and on. But, the next event I'm going to talk about is a event that was so large it shook the world. And that was the 9/11 World Trade Center attacks in 2001. I was about 18, 19 years old at the time, and I was up all night playing John Madden football on PlayStation. And around 8:40, 8:45 in the morning, that morning, I turned off my video games and, I was just seeing what was on TV, flipping through the channels, sort of thing. And I could see the World Trade Center was on fire in New York City. So I thought, this is interesting. I'm going to watch this. And they said a plane had hit the building. And I'd been to New York City before. I've been to the World Trade Center. They were by far the biggest structures, the biggest buildings, the biggest things I've ever seen in my life. When I was in New York City and I wasn't quite sure where I was, all you had to do was look up into the sky and look for the trade centers. And the trade centers was like a waypoint, a vantage point sort of thing where you can see, okay, here's the trade center. Now I know where I am. I could use the trade centers as a point of reference. That's how big the trade centers were. I mean, they were 100 stories tall. So, the first plane hits. There's fires. It doesn't look too bad. But then a second plane hits the other Trade Center building. Now, I mean, the law of statistics tells us that the chance of a plane hitting one World Trade Center then another within minutes of each other is very improbable. And then the moment that really, shook the world, I watched live on television on the morning news before 9 o'clock in the morning. I watched the first trade center fall at free fall speed into its own footprint. And then I watched the second trade center minutes later fall into its footprint. And the first thing I felt was fear. I was scared because now they're pushing this as an attack. And then, later there was the Pentagon attack. Then, you know, I'm from Pennsylvania, so the Shanksville plane that went down really hit home. I mean, I live in eastern Pennsylvania. New York City is about a 2-hour drive. So all this is happening very close to where I live. And my first reaction was the reaction the PSYOP wanted us to feel, which was fear, anger, and hatred. Me and my friends went and got our guns, and we got a few cases of beer, and we all huddled up at my one friend's house, expecting an invasion, an attack on the United States. And I think many people felt that, the anxiety and fear and panic. And then, it was the war on terror. We went to war in Iraq again. We went to war in Afghanistan. And after, the fear and anxiety subsided, I was able to really, come to my senses. And one day I typed into Google what really happened on 9/11. And I found, whatreallyhappened.com. I found Alex Jones at that time. And I really dove into what they call the truth movement. And I was reading every article I could. I was watching every video I could. And I just knew, this was the turning point. After 9/11, there was no going back. The world was changing, and I was watching it happen live in real time in my life. It took a few years of research before I really started understanding the magnitude of 9/11 and what it meant for the world. 9/11 by far was the most catastrophic event in my lifetime. And I think that event in particular woke more people than any other event in history. To watch a building fall at free fall speed and fall into its own footprint really stood out to me. The cleanup afterwards was done in record time because obviously they wanted to get rid of the evidence. The plane that allegedly hit the Pentagon, after I researched that, it's like no plane could have possibly hit that building. The maneuver that they said the pilot pulled off, the top pilots in the world couldn't have pulled off. He flew a 747, I believe it was, a few feet from the ground and pulled this huge, 180-degree turn sort of thing where it just wasn't possible. And how many times did we watch those buildings fall on the news? They hammered that event into our minds, into our psyche. And, I really came out thinking, hey, if they could knock down the Trade Center, they could destroy any individual or any group of people. Look at the power these people have. And I think that was the goal. The goal was to strike so much fear into people's hearts and minds that they would be willing to go along with just about anything. And As Voltaire has said, if you want to know who's ruling you, just look at who you can't speak up about. And, you speak up about Israel or the United States government and the military, and, you say anything about these terror attacks, you're automatically branded a conspiracy theorist. You get attacked on all levels. I mean, in 2001, 2002, speaking up about the World Trade Center, I mean, you got hammered by people on social media. How dare you speak up about this? What about the families, the victims, the people who died? What about the soldiers who died at war? And it's like, hey, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the incident. But that's where they hit you. They hit you on an emotional level. And then, like sheep, everyone joins on and joins in the attack. As years went by and more of these events happened, I just became more and more woke. I like saying the word woke because of that Dear White People video that BuzzFeed had when they said, stop saying woke. So now I'm just going to say woke more and more because I know it aggravates people. Fast forward to today, 2017. Today there was the GOP shooting where a leftist, Donald Trump hating, Bernie Sanders supporter decided to shoot some people at a baseball game, which I believe is a psyop because it's always the same narrative, lone wolf. The victims are always, shown all over the news. The perpetrator always dies in the event. So there's never going to be a trial. He's never going to be questioned. The perpetrator is never going to get a platform to say why he did it. We had the 3 terrorist attacks in England. I mean, you speak out about them. The English are just as bad as the Americans for being sheep. I go after Rebel Media and Tommy Robinson, and the amount of hate I get in return is astounding. This guy is a hero to these people. They suffer terribly from parasocial behavior. And parasocial behavior is when you have a one-sided relationship with a celebrity or sports figure, where the sports figure or celebrity doesn't know you. They wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire, but yet you believe you know them so well, and you know what these people think and how they feel, when really you don't know shit about them. But, moving on to the topic of elections. In 1999, the year 2000 was the first year I was able to vote. And George W. Bush sounded like one of the greatest candidates I've ever heard. Stop police in the world, stop the drug war, stop the wars, bring troops home, bring jobs to America. He sounded great. And then look at the presidency he had for 8 years. He was, at that point, in my mind, one of the worst presidents of all time. And then in 2008, we had Obama. And, still being naive, I thought, Obama's a black guy. He can't be in cahoots with the New World Order sort of thing. The Illuminati, the deep state, as they call it now. Zionism. So I voted for Obama, and I was fooled again. And he was reelected. And then came Ron Paul. I was huge into Ron Paul. I had so much time and emotion invested into Ron Paul. I thought, there's no way America is not going to elect this guy. He's talking about ending the Federal Reserve, closing down military bases, bringing troops home. He talks about a sound currency, rebuilding America. I mean, he sounded great. And then he lost. He ran again in 2012, lost again. And that really broke my spirit politically. You know, after that, I just lost all hope in the American voting system and the power the left right paradigm has over the people of America just really became so obvious to me. Then we get, Donald Trump, and I did vote for Trump. And the only reason I voted for Trump was to spite Hillary Clinton. I didn't want Hillary Clinton to get in. And, I knew deep down that Trump was involved with the elites, but I thought maybe, just maybe, he might be the real deal. Just maybe. And, he was talking about building a wall between the United States and Mexico, which I think is a stupid idea. I mean, remove the incentive for these people to come. Quit giving illegal Mexicans food stamps and Section 8 free housing and free college. Quit giving them all these freebies and they won't come here. If they had no reason to come here, they won't come. What person wouldn't want free food, free housing, free money, free college tuition? Citizens in the United States have a hard time getting that stuff, and people are just going to mosey on in from other countries. A woman gets knocked up, has a baby, it's automatically an American citizen, and now they're bringing their whole family up here. I mean, that shit has to stop. The influx of illegal immigrants was another waking experience for me, because there's illegal immigrants in my hometown. I live in a town of 5,000 people in eastern Pennsylvania. If illegal Mexicans can make it here, I mean, they can be anywhere. So anyways, Trump gets elected, and within the first few months, he stacks his cabinet with Zionists, with people from Goldman Sachs. He never sent Hillary to prison like he said multiple times. He never, the wall ain't getting built. I don't care what anyone says. Clinton's not going to jail. He's full of shit. He's just another Zionist shill pushing the New World Zionist agenda. And again, I wasn't fooled as bad this time because I already knew from the Bush experience, Obama, and Ron Paul that politics is bullshit. It's just there to make us think we have a choice. It's the false left-right paradigm, and that's the way it's going to be as long as the United States has a two-party system. You never see a third party get any kind of momentum or power or prestige or any kind of platform to give out its information or its ideas. So until we fix that, we're going to get the same old thing. And, throughout life, I always thought Trump was a Democrat. He always said he was, and now he's running as a Democrat, as a Republican president. So, the fall from the Trump effect wasn't as hard. I knew he was a liar and he's just another politician. So, I mean, it wasn't that bad. You know, being aware, following the news, keeping up with current events, and most of all, most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, is reading books. Reading is by far one of the most important things a person can do. You learn so much. You increase your ability to communicate, your understanding of vocabulary, of words. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I mean, the amount of people who read today is so small. It's sickening. It's saddening. I mean, I believe it's less than 5% of people read. I mean, that's pathetic. No wonder people are so easily fooled, you know? They're not reading. They're not doing anything. They go on, they go on their bullshit social media. They're stuck in an echo chamber, and, that's all they do. So, I used to be angry at the sheeple, as I call them, but now I feel sad for them. To be a normie and stuck in this, 24-hour news cycle where you're constantly being pounded with fear and anxiety, that's a sad way to live. So I became what's known as a truther. I don't like to label myself as anything. I'm just a person out there trying to get information out there. Am I right all the time? Absolutely not. No one is. I make mistakes just like anybody does. But I hope that, by my podcasts, by my personal podcast, which is Burning Down Babylon, I started a new podcast with some friends, Black Cube Mystery and Dr. Zavalgo. We have a podcast called The Midnight Hour. Join in and watch. That's also on my YouTube page. I now make videos about things I find important or funny, or I just want to have a laugh, or just pointing out the left-right paradigm, throwing out information that people may not normally get. And even though I get hammered in the comments and the thumbs down shills come out and attack me, I don't care. That just shows, you get attacked hardest when you're over the target. So, I don't want to keep rambling on. I'm already a half hour in. If being awoken is a process. It ain't just a aha moment where all of a sudden you know everything. It's a process of becoming your greatest version and learning as much as possible. And I'm going to continue to do that. But I just wanted to share some of the events and some of my story to how I became awake and, read books. Even though it's the mainstream media, follow stories so you can tell the bullshit from what's real. You can see how they manipulate stories and how they hide information. They can't change a book. Yes, they can change the edition, but, you have a book, you have the print in your hand. Websites can be changed, can be taken down. Blogs, YouTube channels, videos disappear. My Sandy Hook video I worked very hard on was taken down due to inappropriate content. When you see anal sex, fisting, pissing, shitting, women having sex with dogs, beheadings, all that shit's on YouTube, but they're going to take down my video that had no violence, no nudity, no gore, and that's how the memory hole works. In closing, I would like to share some books that I believe are some of the most important books a person can read. George Orwell, 1984. George Orwell, Animal Farm. Two of the best books you can read. Highly, highly, I suggest you read those books. A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I mean, those three books are some of the best books you can read, by far. I read a great book called Why Stalin, Why Lenin. That was a really good book for eye-opening. Born in Blood by John J. Robinson. One of the best books I read on Freemasonry. And, how that really shaped the world. Coming up with books right off the top of my head's kind of hard. There's so many, I get lost. But I mean, 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World. To me, those are some of the best books you can read. Maybe I'll do a podcast just on books, and I'll try to put out some of the most influential books that I've ever read. I mean, books to me are just amazing. I have books of all kinds. Right now I'm reading the A Song of Ice and Fire series. It's a 5-book series, commonly known as Game of Thrones. I've completed the first 3 books. They run from 800 to 1,000 pages apiece, so it takes me about a month to read them in my free time, but, read everything you can. I love science fiction. I love fantasy. I love, history. I mean, Morals and Dogma, another great book. Um, like I said, I'm gonna have to do just a video on books. There's too many to just pull off at the top of my head like this, but that's all, I just want to basically wrap up the video now. I just wanted to share some of my life, some of my story, let my subs get to know me a little better on a personal level. And I hope maybe if this information can help and reach one person, I mean, I consider that a job well done. I want to again thank all my subscribers, thank all my viewers. Thank you very much for your support. It really, really means a lot to me. You can find me on Twitter at LloydWhite462. If you're watching this video, you've already found me on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel, like my videos, comment. Thumbs down if you don't like them. Tell me what you think, how can I do better? Check out my buddy Black Cube Mystery. He's on my featured Friends of Lloyd White section on my YouTube page. He's one of the co-hosts to our show. We share the show. It's a great show. Tonight's Wednesday night at 9:30. We'll be going live in Google Hangouts. You can join the show. You can be in the show. The link is in the description. I'm also on Minds.com. At Burning Down Babylon on Minds. I post my videos there. I make some comments, shit like that. But check out the Midnight Hour. That's our show we're doing. It's been growing, We've only been doing it for a few weeks now, so I mean, started off just as a chat and after-hour show, after the Bigger Picture, Jeff C. show, and now it's growing into its own show. We have people in the comment section, or in the chat section. So, I mean, my subs are growing. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. So, subscribe to my channel. Help me out here. I'm trying to get to 100 subs. None of my channels are monetized. You'll never see ads. You'll never see commercials. I'll never shill for YouTube. One day I may take donations, but that's somewhere in the future. So once again, this is Burning Down Babylon, Lloyd White, Episode 2, My Personal Life. Peace out, everybody. Stay safe. Many blessings. Peace! Thanks for watching, everybody. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share. But either way, Lloyd don't care. Peace. I'm out, bitches.